Luis Castillo and Patrick Corbin are trending in opposite directions. Plus, we have some sleepers for Week 8 next on Fantasy Baseball Today in 5. Welcome into FBT in 5. As always, make sure to follow and stream us on Spotify. Today is Friday, May 14th. I am Frank Stanfield, joined by Scott White, and the people are freaking out. Scott, Luis Castillo, this time at Coors Field. We didn't really expect much in the start, obviously, but he allowed 8 earned runs over 3 2/3. The ERA is up over 7. It's at 7.71. So what do we do with Luis Castillo? Are we closer to dropping him at this point?
I mentioned after his last start that I was at least starting to think about it in some of my shallower leagues. I don't know that a Coors Field start, a bad Coors Field start, should be the impetus to pull the plug finally, because everybody deserves a pass at Coors Field. Then I don't know that your opinion should have changed because of this particular start. But what was concerning about this start was his changeup was his least thrown pitch. And his changeup is the pitch that makes Luis Castillo what he is. Hasn't been right all year, and it appears he's losing confidence in it based on his pitch selection in this start. He could turn things around just as quickly as he's gone wrong here. Maybe he regains the feel for his changeup. He seemed pretty confident after his last start that the Reds and he knows they know what's going on. Maybe there's a pitch tipping situation. Maybe it wouldn't at all be surprising if it's something very small that he corrects overnight, like next week. It's right. It also wouldn't be surprising if he doesn't get right until next year. So at some point, we're going to have to think about dropping him. I just don't think we're quite there yet. Obviously, sit him, though, till he shows signs of coming around.
Maybe he can turn things around the way that Patrick Corbin has turned things around against the Phillies. 7 innings, 1 run, 9 strikeouts to 0 walks. Fastball velocity was up. Throw his slider a ton. He's got a 3.00 ERA over his last 5 starts. Scott, is Patrick Corbin back?
He might be, and this is a perfect example of how quickly it can turn around for a pitcher, because this was the most encouraging start for Patrick Corbin of the past 2 seasons. And it looked like the kind you would have seen from him in 2018, 2019, when he was basically a fantasy ace. Even more than the velocity being as high as it was that he threw his slider 50% of the time, and it was good enough to throw 50% of the time, and got 13 of his 18 swinging strikes. So that's very much like retro Patrick Corbin. He says he's getting close to feeling like his old self. He's been making some mechanical adjustments. Feels like he's finishing his pitches better, using his lower body more. Seems like he's on the right track. I'm not ready to declare him back after one start where everything seems right, but I certainly feel a lot better about him now than I did before this start.
How did the prospects of the Seattle Mariners do in their debuts? Jared Kelenic was leading off. He went 0 for 4 with a strikeout. He did have a batted ball just over 100 miles per hour, but it did not result in a hit. And Logan Gilbert, 4 innings, 5 hits, 4 runs, 0 walks, and 5 strikeouts. He allowed 2 home runs to 2 pretty good hitters, Franmil Reyes and Jose Ramirez. I thought the breaking stuff, the secondary stuff, looked really good for Logan Gilbert, but he left some fastballs right in the middle of the zone, and those wound up getting hit pretty hard. But ultimately, hold on to Logan Gilbert. We're still very excited about him long term. Scott, let's wrap up with some Week 8 sleepers. We'll start on the pitching side. Who are some 2-star pitchers and maybe some single-star pitchers you like for next week?
Well, Adbert Alzolay, who I also recommended last week, is a 2-start sleeper. I don't know exactly what happened, but he got pushed back, and now it looks like the 2 starts will be next week, which is fine. The matchups aren't that great, but I just think Alzolay is good. Throwing that slider a lot, getting a lot of swinging strikes with it, going 6 innings more, and pretty widely available. I like him. That's by far my favorite of the 2-star pitchers. John Gray has been pretty successful this year, but at San Diego and then home at Coors Field versus Arizona, that's a little sketchy. Casey Mize at Seattle and at Kansas City, those are pretty good matchups for a guy who's been good more often than not, but the strikeout rate gives me some cause for concern. If you want to go really deep, James Caprillion, who just made his first major league start on Wednesday, it was very effective. He looked good. He's only 8% rostered, but the matchups could be better versus Houston at LAA. That's the Angels. Yeah, those could be better.
How about on the other side, Scott, some sleeper hitters you like for next week?
Oh, I do want to mention a couple one-star pitchers.
Okay.
Specifically Rich Hill at Baltimore. He's only 22% rostered, and he just had a great start on Thursday, struck out 9 and 6 2/3 innings, 3 of his past 4 starts, 6 innings. He looks like Rich Hill of old and at Baltimore. Hitters. I like the Braves matchups this week. I like the Dodgers matchups this week. I think it's a good time to start Austin Riley, who's looked better of late. I think it's a good time to start Gavin Lux, who's looked much better in May than he was in April, especially with the strikeout rate. The Angels have 8 games coming up this week. So I think David Fletcher, Justin Upton, those are 2 players you should look into. I also think the Tigers matchups are pretty good. Jemer Candelario and Robbie Grossman are 2 hitters I'd consider for them.
For more extensive fantasy baseball coverage, listen to the Fantasy Baseball Today podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, your smart speakers, or anywhere else podcasts are found. And thanks for listening to Fantasy Baseball Today in 5. If you enjoyed the pod, please leave a 5-star review on Apple. We'll be back again on Monday morning. Bye-bye.